Hello, it is, let's see, November 27th, the day before Thanksgiving, 2013, and I just have a few things I kind of wanted to blog about, and I'm not in the mood for typing. Not really in the mood for talking either, but I thought I'd go ahead and give it a go and see what happens. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about this last weekend. I took my daughters, I should say, to Wisconsin Dells at the Kalahari. They have Dashio Con. We didn't have the money to stay at the Kalahari because it's very expensive. Would have been fun though because when you stay there you get to use their gigantic water slide park. Um, we have actually been to the water slide park last February. I did it for Kara's birthday. It was okay. A little bit of a disappointment, but it wasn't the park's fault. Um, I had asked their dad to come so he could watch the boys. That way the boys could come, but I could still have fun with the girls. And when we got there and I told him I would pay for it, and of course this is like, this is going to make it difficult for us. When I do stuff like this, I know that we're going to barely get through the month, but I hate always being too poor to do anything. So sometimes it's just, okay, let's suck it up, have fun for a day, and then suck it up again for the rest of the month. Anyways, so when he got there, he didn't bring any trunks, and he said he had no intention to swim, but I still had to pay full price for him to be there. So that really ticked me off. Not that he wouldn't swim, but it just seemed so close-minded that there's this giant wide water park and you don't think there's anything that you're going to do. And then instead of watching the boys the first few hours, he sat at a table and studied and read and did stuff on the computer. So basically I paid him for nothing. Not paid him, but paid him to come for nothing. Finally, he did start watching them in the wave pool, and I don't know. I get really nervous around water and children. Maybe that's something to do with me drowning when I was 4. Um, and knowing that the statistics for kids who can kind of swim and they drown easy, so it just makes me very nervous. So I didn't really spend much of any time with the girls, and every now and then I'd go ahead and run off and go on something, but it's not as fun. Um, Anyways, the girls really didn't care for it because they didn't like the whole standing in line for everything. I think that places like that are a lot more fun when you have a group of friends that can entertain each other while you're waiting in line. I grew up going to Knott's Berry Farm and Disneyland, Magic Mountain, and places like that. And we often had a group of friends and we'd chat and giggle and laugh and, enjoyed it. It was way more fun when we could just go on the rides without the line, but it was okay. Um, but yeah, so, he did kind of help a little at the end, so that kind of didn't make up for it. Anyways, lesson learned. Next time, leave the boys with Daddy at his place and take the girls. I just hate having to leave them out, though. And so this trip to the Kalahari was for Dashio Con, which is a manga and anime con. Very similar to Comic Con, and for those who don't know, pretty much, even though it says, you think of it as manga and anime, like my daughter says, it's basically any fandom. You see a lot of Doctor Who and Ghostbusters and the Avengers, as well as all the other manga and anime, uh, cosplayers. Um, I didn't attend myself because, well, basically we almost canceled the whole thing. Again, it was one of those, we're going to barely make it to the end of the month if we do this, but this is something that the girls really, really love, so I want to do it with them. And then it was just, okay, we won't make it to the end of halfway through the month, so we can't go. But their dad had told me he would help pay for it, and so he stayed true to his promise, and he gave me $100 towards it. I ended up having to use a couple of those dollars to buy milk and eggs, but that's how tight it was. But it did buy the gas money, and then Hannah had volunteered so that she wouldn't have to pay. I tried to volunteer, me and Kara, but they said they never got my email, and I emailed them several times, so I don't know what happened there. Um, And then we didn't know because they didn't tell us that Hannah would still have to pay. It's like $35, which for a con is actually really good. But for someone who is broke, that's bad. Um, but so I used them, gave her the 35 because we're already there, and then they said they would give it back if she worked all her hours, and that totally makes sense. So I'm sure there's a lot of people who would try to rip off the system, shamefully. Hopefully not, but you know how people are. Um, so she did her hours and she did get her money back. The funny part was I brought well, not funny. I brought my other daughter's good friend with us, and she her mom gave us some money for her to have food and stuff. And I kept wondering why I was running out of money so fast, and I had forgotten that the extra 35 had gone towards Hannah. So thankfully, when Hannah got that back, we all got to enjoy a meal at Denny's. and, um, and sit down and relax. Hot meal, not fast food or beef jerky. So, but the girls had a blast. I thought it was really small, actually. I didn't think it seemed like there was a lot of people, but because we've been to Anime Central and that was crowded, crazy, crazy crowded. And then we've also been to JFAX in Michigan, and JFAX is actually, maybe it's just the way it's set up, but it seemed like there was a lot of people there. Um, but yeah, maybe it's just because maybe the Kalahari had more room. I don't know. It just seemed like there was less people at the Kalahari. JFAX was great because JFAX was free. It was done at a university. And so the money that they needed for cleanup crew and all that came from the vendors. I wish that Dashio Con would do that. That would be so nice. Then I wouldn't be stuck waiting in the halls. But yeah, so I didn't pay for me to go, but I did get to walk down the halls, take lots of pictures, and then read a lot at McDonald's. Anyways, at one point, Kara's friend and I, Kara's friend gets bored really easy. And it seemed like she was having a miserable time, but by the end of the con, she said she just had a blast. But she just gets bored easy, so she's probably got ADD, and she just jumps around from thing to thing. And she had gotten bored and wanted to go with me to sit at McDonald's and read. So we went to McDonald's, got her a $1 sandwich and probably a $1 coffee or something for me. Love the dollar menu. I don't like fast food, but sometimes that dollar menu really helps, and especially when you need a place to just hang out. Anyway, so I was reading and she was doing whatever she was doing, and we were chatting back and forth, and she said something about, I hate fast food restaurants. And the place was mostly empty, but there was this man sitting about a table away from us, and I heard him say, well, what are you doing at McDonald's? And I looked over and he had this big grin on his face, and you could tell he didn't mean any harm. He was just joking. And so, we kind of got a laugh at that. And then he got up and he had his computer with him and came over. He's like, hey, I got to show you something funny someone said to me. And it was Native American related. And he said, something about him being Native American. And he looked very, what we call Indian. He did. With the dark skin and everything. And a lot of people you can't tell. Like my daughters have Native American in them, and they have African American in them, but they're whiter than me. You can't tell. But this guy, you could spot it. Anyways, so here, he's showing me this funny comment, and I can't remember what it was, but it was funny, and it was, aimed at him because of his nationality, and it was cute. And so then I just have to interrupt this and say, technically, interrupting our conversation the first time was rude. Coming over to our table was rude, if you're going to go by what's appropriate and what's not. We didn't care. I'm very friendly. We were bored. He seemed nice. I'm always cautious, but we weren't in a situation where there was any danger. I find some people to be very entertaining. Anyways, but technically, now the reason I'm saying that is because of what happened next. So as he was going back to his table, I said, so what tribe are you from? And his whole face just fell, like very serious. And he said, well, the way I was brought up, you didn't ask somebody what tribe they were from unless you asked if you could ask first, like, say, do you mind me asking? And I was like, oh, okay. And I said, well, you can ask me what my nationality is, and I'll tell you all about it. I don't care. And anyways, anything I tried to say after that, especially if it made sense, you could see him completely shut off and not, he didn't want to hear it. And then he sat down and proceeded to scold me about how rude I was. And so finally I said, I am not enjoying this conversation and you need to leave. And he did. Thankfully, it was a peaceful departure, and he went back to his table and he sat there for a minute, and the young lady with me wanted to know what was wrong with him. And I said, wait, because it's, I don't really want to talk in front of this man. It's very tempted to say exactly what I felt was wrong with him so he could hear me, but really I didn't need to do that. He obviously did have problems, and by sitting there blasting him behind his back wasn't going to solve anything for him at all. So I guess he got annoyed because I think he went to another table or he left. I don't know. And then I told her that, yeah, there may be something wrong with him, but I believe he has a victim. What's it called? I had a name for it. Oh, where you like being the victim. I forgot the word I used. Complex, victim complex. And I said, you notice when I was talking to him about things that made sense, he would just shut me off. He didn't want to hear it. He wanted to be the victim in the situation. So there was nothing, to say, because he was going to turn it all into how badly he's treated. It wasn't really about me being rude. It was about how bad he's treated. So that was interesting and weird and uncomfortable. Later on, when I was telling my daughter about the situation, the term emotional or spiritual vampire came to my mind, and I think that was a very appropriate term for him as well, because he sucked the positive out of the air. If he started off positive, and then he just kind of sucked it out. And when I'm sitting there with the young lady and he had left us, it was very that feeling, and kind of in the atmosphere. And so thankfully I have been through enough of that that I don't usually let it keep me down for very long, and was able to bring the atmosphere back up. But I didn't actually think of that term till later on, and it just really applied. The term vampire, because of course vampire has to do with sucking the life out, and so when someone sucks your good energy or your positiveness out of you, you got to stop and wonder if this is something they do, because sometimes people, that's what they do. They go everywhere and they suck the life out of everyone in a emotional way, and you don't have to let that happen. I haven't always been so great at excusing people, but I think I did good, and I'm glad I've come a long ways and got to the point where I didn't feel intimidated, and didn't say anything. And that's a big journey for me, because I've been easily intimidated most of my life, easily manipulated. I'm a people pleaser, and it doesn't do anyone any good. But then, acting out in anger and frustration doesn't help either. That there's a way to say, to excuse whatever's going on and then go on with your life.